What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. We got a lot to unpack when it comes to Alberta independence, we'll say. Alberta prosperity. Many people have been talking online, and I've seen other videos dropping, claiming that there's a lot of disarray going on within the talks of Alberta becoming an independent, sovereign nation. I want to clear the air a little bit, at least to what the facts state. It's important that we do this because there seems to be a lot of infighting. There seems to be a lot of misinformation out there, and I hate using that word, but it's being told around a lot when it comes to one channel says one thing over the other. Alberta Prosperity Project tweets something, a news article says something else. What you have to remember here is one thing that I've always stated on this channel. Excuse me, whether you get information from me, or whether you get information from the Alberta Prosperity Project, or whether you get it from mainstream shill prostitutes, although I don't understand why you would want that information, that's your choice. A lot of what you're going to see is going to be special interest, paid interests, distractions to take the eye off the prize. The prize right now is simply, we get to a vote, and you either vote yes or no. The problem we're running into along the way are people changing what they say are the rules, or people discussing how things aren't relevant. And we have interference even from the federal government, while Mark Carney still has yet to say anything about what Alberta's proposing. Those within our Senate are definitely kicking up some dirt. I'm going to get into that right now. I want to start by shedding light on where the problem is, because I've seen numerous people since the other day's video saying, hey, listen, you don't get to keep your passport if Alberta separates. You don't get Canada pension. You don't get all these things. I want to raise people's views over to what happened in Quebec in the 90s. This was the same argument that took place. Quebec felt that they were owed out of the Quebec pension plan, that if they separated, Canada would still owe them money. There was a massive debate over it. And this is the whole point about, should a yes vote go through? The nation itself, the government, provincial governments, First Nations, are all to sit down legally in good faith, according to the law, and negotiate the deal or the terms for Alberta's exit, meaning nothing is final until that yes vote goes through. That's when the negotiations begin. However, there are certain legalities that are owned, and the government has already admitted to those. So let's clear the air. Alberta Prosperity Project tweet out, clearly this struck a chord, so we fixed it. Old age security pensions, contributions already paid and legally being owing from the Canada Pension Plan and old age security plans, meaning that you're not going to lose those. You can't. In fact, if you look at the laws, you can already claim Canada Pension abroad. You can claim old age security abroad. You don't have to be living in Canada. You just have to have contributed to it at some point. Canadian connection. You will always have Canada in your blood. How you choose to view it is up to you. And I've said that a million times over. This isn't Alberta saying, to hell with Canada. We don't like Canada anymore. We're done with the abuse. We're done with the government. That's what the statement needs to be here. Nobody hates this country. Nobody hates Canada as a landmass, Canada as a people. People are just fed up with getting a raw deal from a government that doesn't want to change how they're behaving. Hope for the future. One thing, Canadian passport. This is where I wanted to touch down on. You will get an Alberta passport. You can renounce your Canadian passport. Heck, burn it if you want to. Now, you can keep it as well. You can travel abroad on a Canadian passport, even if this were to go through. Mark Carney is the biggest attester to that one. We all know he holds 3 passports. And that gets touched on below. Personal identity. No one will take this away from you. What you leave behind is up to you. All we're ditching here is the government of Canada and their ability to landlock Alberta. People say that Alberta would be landlocked if it were to become independent. We're already landlocked. We're capped. We're told by Ottawa what we can and can't do on our own provincial land. We're told what taxes we have to pay. We're told we have to put up with scandals. We have to put up with not extending our ability to be prosperous with oil and gas or any technologies for that matter. It all has to go through the government. I know I'm sounding like a broken record here, but here's how Jeffrey Rath, again, keep in mind, constitutional lawyer. This guy would not be stating these things online without fact. Under Canadian law, Albertans would not lose their Canadian citizenship. Carney has 4 passports. Mike Myers has 3. Canada Pension Plan is legally owed to everyone who paid into it. Doesn't matter if you're in Costa Rica or Alberta. Stop lying, as he says in this post. This is where there's a massive problem. And again, I'm going to reach out to Ezra Levant. I'd like to get him on the show because he talked in depth at Rebel News' town hall at Done Getting Screwed about this encyclopedia that was in French during the Quebec separation days in the 90s when he was working with Preston Manning. And while it was in French, and he says he's misplaced it, but it would be good to establish something like this. These are the things we need to work on right now instead of Twitter wars, instead of all these, and please don't get me wrong, I'm happy anytime these guys want to come on the channel and talk, but I've often said Jeffrey Rath should not be speaking. Jeffrey Rath, and people seem to think I have a problem with him when I say that. He should be focusing on helping to write said encyclopedia alongside people like Keith Wilson, those who know the laws, those who know the outcomes of what happens should Alberta become independent, so that when people have questions, the whole purpose of this encyclopedia was that potentially any question somebody would have had against separating in Quebec, they had an answer for. Here's how it works. Here's what happens. If Albertans are to have a clear vision of where we're going and what we're doing, we need a document similar to this. Now, I will advocate that Alberta Prosperity Project has had to change certain posts that they've put out throughout this foray since its conception. There are times when they have to come out and say, okay, so it turns out we have to change some wording, or we have to change. This happens legally all the time. This doesn't mean that they're lazy. It doesn't mean that they've made mistakes. It just means that things have changed. But if you don't have a concrete document that is going to provide clarity to people, again, people tell me, hey, Fringe, I'm so sick of all the Alberta stuff. There's a reason I'm covering it. There's a reason I'm showing this. We already know people are going to have a vote. The vote is happening. We know that. The question is do people have enough information to make an educated decision on said ballot? So as things change, I'm trying to keep you guys up to date. Please be patient with me, because this isn't just Alberta. This is our whole country we're talking about here. The problem you're running into is now the federal government comes in. Trudeau senator threatening Albertans who wish to escape his abuse. What precisely do you mean by no future? You've got Dr. Christopher Wells, independent senator from Alberta. Again, Trudeau appointed this man. I can assure you, no Canadian passport, no citizenship, no pension, and no future if you want to leave Canada. Is this the rhetoric we should be getting from nonpartisan senators? Because keep in mind, when these senators are appointed, they're not supposed to butt their nose into politics. They're supposed to debate bills. They're supposed to remove themselves from party status, even though they're labeled party status. You can tell by the flags in the bio, even if there's a Canadian flag in there, where this guy stands. You can tell he's elbows up, Team Canada. And when I say Team Canada, hopefully you know what I mean by that. We're talking like Mark Carney, Team Canada. When you make these kind of threats as a senator, it doesn't bode well for the rest of the country. In fact, all it does is convince people, hey, this is the authoritarianism we're talking about. This is why we need to get away from this. A senator, a appointed senator in the House of Commons is telling you, I can assure you, your freedom will not be granted. You'll struggle. This is what I talk about an abusive relationship with the government. similar to a domestic violence situation in a marriage. You can't leave me. You're weak. You'll never get ahead. You better just shut up and pay. Pierre Poilievre pointed this out, that Albertans are just fed up being told to shut up and pay. We have a senator who's supposed to be nonpartisan telling us, I can assure you no future. What do you think is going to happen? What legal challenges do you think are going to come if Canada or if Alberta votes the way it's looking? Many will vote. Again, this is why we need concrete documents. This is why we need focus. All these separate parties, all of these entities that are forming amongst the discussion of Alberta voting on a question on a ballot need to come together. They all need to group together, put their egos aside. If a vote fails, split into parties. Do whatever you want. Do it, hopefully, organized. But there's a lot that's breaking down this movement now. You've got people questioning the Alberta Prosperity Project. You've got guys like this coming out of the Senate. You also have the Republican Party of Alberta. Now, I've talked about these guys many times. In fact, some of my viewers have reached out to me saying that they're going to go to town halls that these guys are offering, everything else. Here's the problem, and this tweet shows it specifically. Look at this. Republican Party of Alberta members choose Cameron Davies as candidate for Olds Didsbury Three Hills. There was no vote for this. This is another party that wants to exist within Alberta. And I've said, and this was part of the argument I had when they were at the Rebel News town hall. Now, again, Rebel News did not endorse this party. They simply allow people who want to speak to be in the building. But they got mad when I told them they're nothing more than the PPC of Alberta. They're just here to vote, split the vote split. They're going to drive the NDP into power. Now, they fought back on that and said, oh, no. We want a party that's going to argue against Daniele Smith. We want a party that's going to stand up for real Albertans that want an independent nation, an independent Alberta. You're placing candidates in. Now, keep in mind, they do have old boys from other political parties and those who are experienced with other political parties working within them. But here's Catherine Kowalchuk tweeting out, I'm a member of this party and also live in this riding. I don't recall being asked to vote on this appointment. So I've said to these guys, you don't replace government with more government. If Alberta wants to separate, it's to form their own grassroots government that knows what's best for Albertans, that don't have their pockets lined by other businesses, lined by those they own favors to. So now Alberta Republicans are entering the foray to simply become the PPC of Alberta. These guys, in my opinion, should be dropping all of this. If they truly care about Alberta, they should be working alongside Alberta Prosperity and a bunch of others as a group to ensure that, again, these documents are available for people, information is available for people, and if they truly want a strong, independent, and free Alberta, they should be pushing to ensure that we get it instead of infighting. If they don't want to do that, if they just want to keep touting their own horns and giving appointments to random people that they choose, they're nothing more than a hack party as far as I'm concerned, if that's the case. If that's what they do. But many people, and again, where the infighting starts, are people saying, I know better than you, I know more than you, the Canadian government said this, the provincial government said that. Let's talk a little bit about dual citizens, because people, again, I know, I can hear it in the comments already. Fringe, these are the laws, you're not allowed. I've had many viewers reach out to me, tell me, you can't keep your passport if you leave. Let's take a look at what Canada's laws on dual citizenship are. Because again, Mark Carney has multiple passports. I know not all the text is on here. I will read it out. Canada allows you to have multiple citizenships while keeping your Canadian citizenship. So if Alberta separates, you can keep your Canadian passport. You can travel on a Canadian passport. After all, you weren't born in 2025. You were born in Canada. Even if you were born in Alberta, you were born in Canada. I myself born in Manitoba. So if somebody's going to tell me if Alberta separates, you cannot be a Canadian citizen anymore, even though you were born in Manitoba, this is the same as being told that if you were born in the UK and moved to Canada, you must immediately renounce your UK citizenship because you live and pay taxes in Canada. That's not how it works. That's emotion getting involved. It says here, however, not all countries do allow this. Some countries may even consider it illegal for you to have another citizenship. So that would be if Alberta turned around and said, you are not allowed to hold Canadian citizenship if you live in Alberta. I don't see that happening. Again, Jeffrey Rath and Alberta Prosperity have said, do whatever you want with your citizenship. It's your choice. That's the whole point of this exercise. Freedom. Freedom to choose. But the Canadian government is not allowed to tell you that when you were born in Canada, you cannot keep your Canadian passport. You cannot keep your Canadian citizenship. People like that senator might come out and say, you cannot, I can assure you, I'll make it difficult. But the law is the law. Those are opinions. This is the law. Examples of way you might have other citizenships. You were born in another country. You have partner or partners who were born in or a citizen of another country. You officially apply for citizenship of another country. So again, if you became part of Alberta and Alberta had its own passports, you could have an Alberta passport and you could carry a Canada passport. Now, there are lines to this where it says that you may have to pay taxes in other countries, all those other things, but that applies again to any country you would hold citizenship with. The next question comes out about pension. Let's take a look at that. If you've lived or are living outside of Canada, pensions and benefits. If you have lived or worked in Canada and in any other country, or are the survivor of someone who has lived or worked in Canada and in another country, you may be eligible for pensions and benefits from Canada and or from the other country because of a Social Security agreement. A Social Security agreement is an international agreement between Canada and other countries that is designed to coordinate the pension programs of the two countries for people who have lived and worked in both countries. We already know that Alberta's talking about an Alberta pension project or Alberta pension plan. Take over from the Canada pension plan, which they would have in place if Alberta were to become independent. It says Canada has signed Social Security agreements with a number of other countries that offer comparable pension programs. Now, many people are going to say, okay, but they haven't signed an agreement with Alberta. What does that mean? Well, let's get into that. Let's show you. Here is what came up during the discussion of Alberta pension plan. The Alberta government is claiming it would own a significant portion of the Canada pension plan assets if it were to withdraw. And then when we say withdraw, withdrawing from Canada pension plan. Specifically, a government-commissioned report in 2023 estimated Alberta would be owed more than 50% of the CPP assets. This is part of the reason that Alberta wants its own pension plan, because they've contributed more and they get back less. Excuse me. So it's estimated again Alberta would be owed more than 50% of the CPP assets, or approximately $334 billion. Billion. What do you think that would do for Albertans if they were to get that money from the Canadian government? Now, they don't have it to give because they're already running a deficit. In fact, $330 billion is what Mark Carney's roughly going to run in the next 4 years in terms of deficit. It says here, however, the chief actuary of Canada disagreed with the estimate, claiming Alberta's share would be capped at 25%, or about $135 billion. Again, even if Alberta had to push, and let's say 25% is all we got, $135 billion, I'm pretty sure anybody with old age security, anybody with pension, not to mention other monies that would be owed to Alberta, would be looked after significantly and probably better than the Canadian government works with you. We've already seen this with the Alberta pension plan. Its proposed provincial pension plan that would replace the Canadian pension plan for Albertans, it would operate similarly to the Quebec pension plan, allowing for smoother portability of benefits across Canada. Albertans would contribute to the plan, and it would also be used to fund retirement benefits for Albertans. The plan requires a referendum to be held before it can be implemented. So the discussion of an Alberta pension plan essentially says that you'll pay less, but you'll also get back more. That the government would be in charge. The Alberta government would be in charge with dispersing what its seniors get versus the Canadian government, who's out of touch, who's using Canada Pension Plan to fund other projects. They don't want you to claim Canada Pension. The bottom line at the end of this, folks, is that while we show this information, while we talk about the dissolve that's happening between the Republican Party of Alberta, Alberta Prosperity Project, and many others, it's important that we stay with fact. It's important that we stay vigilant. It's important that we share this information with others, at least the gray information that we have right now, so that other people don't get dragged into the distractions. They don't get dragged into controversy. Alberta's going to get one shot at this vote. We need to make sure Albertans make the right choice for them. Again, I'm not here to tout one way or the other. They need to make the right choice for them. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you agree that these groups should be coming together? Do you agree that constitutional lawyers should be focusing on getting all of the information they can to put into a document for other Albertans to look at any time to answer possible questions? Maybe hire a think tank. Let me know your thoughts down below. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you're clicking that button, you turn on your bell for all notifications so that you don't miss a beat anytime a video is dropped on this channel. Join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our weekly live streaming show where I'm joined by the beautiful Mrs. Fringe as we talk about everything that happened this week in politics, everything we know that's coming up in the weeks ahead, as well as back and forth Q&A within the greatest YouTube community on the platform. I look forward to chatting with you guys outside of making these videos each and every week, but I most importantly look forward to talking with you this Friday night starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central here on the channel. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.